Behind bars and in control, the shocking world of U.S. prison gangs, true crime documentary. The shouting started before dawn. Inside California's Pelican Bay State Prison, the lights flicked on and a wave of noise rolled through the high-security block known as the Security Housing Unit, the SHU. Guards sprinted towards cell C-214. Inside, 2 inmates were locked in a violent struggle. One of them, covered in tattoos of a clenched fist and lightning bolts, was a ranking member of the Aryan Brotherhood, one of America's most feared prison gangs. By the time officers pulled them apart, one man lay motionless. His throat had been slashed with a sharpened piece of metal smuggled from the kitchen. On the wall, written in blood with 3 letters, AB. That morning, the prison went into lockdown. For hours, no one spoke. But everyone inside knew what it meant. The killing wasn't random. It was a message. Someone had broken a rule, and the Brotherhood had handled it their own way. What most Americans don't realize is that behind bars, gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood, Mexican Mafia, and Black Guerrilla Family control far more than their cell blocks. They run entire criminal empires, using fear, loyalty, and violence to keep their grip tight. Some gang leaders haven't touched the outside world in decades, yet their orders still reach city streets hundreds of miles away. In 2015, the FBI uncovered one such network. A high-ranking inmate at Pelican Bay, serving a life sentence for murder, was discovered to be running a drug distribution ring in Los Angeles through coded letters and smuggled cell phones. Messages hidden inside legal mail told associates when to collect money, who to intimidate, and which rival dealers to eliminate. The man hadn't left solitary confinement in 15 years, but he was running a business worth millions. The system wasn't just corrupt, it was organized. Inside each gang there were leaders, soldiers, enforcers, and bookkeepers. Every member had a job. One inmate tracked drug payments using notebook paper hidden inside Bible covers. Another managed connections to corrupt guards who smuggled in phones and drugs. Violence was currency. Loyalty was survival. In Texas, investigators discovered that members of the Mexican Mafia were using drone deliveries to drop packages over prison fences. The drones carried cell phones, drugs, and even tiny flash drives with secret communication files. When officers finally caught one, they found a list of over 200 names, each connected to an outside gang contact. Prison wasn't the end of the line, it was the command center. Through illegal phones, leaders sent voice messages disguised as harmless calls to family. They spoke in coded language. Send the shoes meant transfer drugs. Wash the car meant clean the money. The FBI later traced several of these calls to coordinated attacks across California and Arizona. One case shocked investigators more than any other. A single order from inside a federal prison in Louisiana had sparked 3 murders in Houston, all from a man who hadn't seen the outside world in 20 years. He used a smuggled smartphone, a note passed through a crooked guard, and a woman on the outside, his messenger, to make it happen. For ordinary inmates, life around these gangs meant constant fear. If you refused to join, you could become a target. If you joined, leaving was almost impossible. One former prisoner later told federal agents, "You don't retire from this life. You just survive it or die in it."
In 2022, the Department of Justice revealed that dozens of gang members across multiple states have been coordinating violent attacks inside and outside prisons through encrypted apps and social media. They ran their operations like businesses, keeping ledgers, tracking profits, and punishing those who stole or disobeyed. The truth was hard to ignore. Even behind bars, these men weren't just prisoners, they were leaders. They ruled through intimidation, violence, and influence. Some guards followed their orders out of fear, others took bribes, and every new arrest only seemed to make the network stronger. As the lockdown at Pelican Bay continued, the inmate who ordered the throat slashing sat quietly in his cell, sipping his morning coffee. The guard who delivered it didn't meet his eyes. The message had been sent. No one would challenge him again. not today. But what the guard didn't know was that outside the prison, in a quiet Los Angeles neighborhood, another part of the gang's plan was already unfolding. A coded letter had just arrived at a small tattoo shop, instructing a loyal associate to carry out the next step. It was an order that would soon make headlines across America. The letter arrived inside a plain white envelope. It looked ordinary, no return address, just a Los Angeles postmark and neat handwriting that read, "To J. Moreno." Inside the tattoo shop on East 7th Street, the buzz of machines mixed with the faint smell of ink and alcohol. Jose "Joker" Moreno, a mid-level gang associate, wiped his hands on a towel and opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a folded piece of lined paper with 2 sentences in code. "Wash the car twice. The keys are under the chair." Anyone else might have ignored it, but Joker knew exactly what it meant. The message had come from Pelican Bay State Prison, smuggled out through a guard who owed favors. Wash the car wasn't about cleaning anything. It was a command to collect drug money and punish someone who'd failed to pay. Keys under the chair meant the target was close, someone within the neighborhood. He read the message again, then burned it in a small metal tray by the sink. The ashes floated up like gray dust. Joker's hand trembled slightly. Even though he wasn't behind bars, he was still under their control. That same day, 400 miles north, inside Pelican Bay, the man who sent the message, a prisoner known as Raymond Alvarez, sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall. He had been locked up for nearly 2 decades, but his power hadn't faded. Using a cheap cell phone smuggled through kitchen supplies, Ghost managed his gang's finances like a CEO. Every week, coded texts and voice notes left his cell, directing operations across California, Nevada, and Texas. Federal agents had been tracking his activities for months. In a small field office in Sacramento, Special Agent Lauren Davis watched messages stream across her monitor. She worked with the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force, a unit focused on dismantling prison gangs that continued to operate outside prison walls. The task force had recently cracked open a file labeled Operation Cell Block Empire. Davis knew the stakes were high. The last time they moved on Ghost's network, 2 informants were murdered within a week. One inside a county jail, another outside a gas station in Bakersfield. The message was clear. The gang had eyes everywhere, even on the streets. But this time, the agents had something stronger: evidence from the inside. A young inmate named Marcus Hill, serving 5 years for robbery, had agreed to cooperate. He'd been recruited by Ghost's men, promised protection and money. Instead, he found himself trapped in a cycle of violence. When one of his cellmates was stabbed for speaking to a rival, Marcus decided he wanted out. He secretly met with prison investigators and described everything: the coded language, the money trails, and the corrupt guards. "Ghost doesn't need to leave his cell," Marcus whispered during an interview. "He just talks and things happen. People die." Back in Los Angeles, Joker made his move. Late that night, he parked outside a small apartment complex in Boyle Heights. His target was a low-level dealer who'd stolen $10,000 worth of drugs from the gang's stash. Joker didn't want to do it, but orders from inside weren't suggestions. They were commands.
He walked up the narrow stairway, knocked twice, and waited. When the door opened, the air filled with shouting. Neighbors later said they heard loud arguing and then 3 quick pops, gunfire. By the time police arrived, the suspect was dead. No witnesses could identify the shooter, and the only evidence found was a scrap of burned paper near the dumpster. Inside the prison, Ghost received confirmation through a 1-second phone buzz, a signal that the job was done. He smiled faintly. Control was everything, and fear kept his system alive. But Ghost didn't know that one of his own men was already talking. Marcus Hill's cooperation had given the FBI access to hidden ledgers, notes smuggled in Bibles, coded lists stored in legal folders, and a series of money transfers disguised as payments for art supplies. The numbers matched deposits sent from gang associates like Joker Moreno
to prepaid debit cards controlled by Ghost's relatives. A week later, Agent Davis and her team began planning a nationwide raid. They were coordinating with state prisons in California, Texas, and Arizona, along with the Bureau of Prisons. Their goal was to break the communication chain that allowed gangs to operate behind bars. Every message, every order, every dollar, it all starts from one place, Davis said during a briefing. If we cut off the head, we can cripple the network. But the agents had a problem. Their informant inside was starting to panic. Marcus had received a warning. A folded note slipped under his cell door. It read, "We know." That same night, the prison lights flickered and alarms blared through the corridor. Guards rushed to Block D, where smoke was rising from a burning mattress. Marcus Hill's cell door had been jammed shut from the outside. By the time officers forced it open, the air was thick with smoke. He was alive, barely, but the message was unmistakable. Someone on the inside had found out. As paramedics wheeled him down the hallway, Marcus tried to speak. "They're still talking," he whispered weakly. "Phones. They still have phones." The next morning, Agent Davis received a call from Pelican Bay. A guard reported that a cell phone had been found inside Ghost's cell, hidden in the lining of his mattress. When agents checked the call history, they saw dozens of outgoing messages, all sent after the prison had gone on lockdown. The last message, sent just an hour before the search, contained a single line: "The Empire moves, even in silence." Davis leaned back in her chair, realizing what that meant. The FBI had only caught one thread of a much bigger web, and somewhere out there, another coded letter was already on its way. Before dawn, the streets of Los Angeles, Houston, and Phoenix were still dark when black SUVs rolled silently into position. Agents from the FBI, DEA, and state task forces waited for the green light. It was the morning of Operation Cell Block Empire, a nationwide raid that had been months in the making. Inside the command center in Sacramento, Agent Lauren Davis stood over a large digital map of the United States. Dozens of red pins marked locations linked to Ghost's organization: halfway houses, tattoo parlors, stash homes, and even correctional officers under investigation. "All units, stand by," her radio crackled. "Targets are confirmed. Move in now."
At 4 a.m., battering rams shattered doors across multiple states. In Los Angeles, agents stormed Joker Moreno's tattoo shop, finding him asleep in the back room with a loaded pistol and 2 encrypted phones. In Houston, SWAT teams surrounded an apartment complex used for laundering gang money through fake construction companies. In Arizona, officers found a drone loaded with small packets of meth, waiting to fly over a prison fence. Everywhere, agents heard the same phrase whispered by suspects as they were cuffed: "You can't stop the system." Inside Pelican Bay State Prison, Ghost Alvarez awoke to the sound of pounding boots. Guards ordered him to the ground, rifles aimed. He didn't resist. He'd seen this before. Raids came and went, but the organization always adapted. They tore apart his cell, flipping his mattress, ripping open books, and searching through every inch of concrete and metal. Hidden behind a loose tile, agents found a tiny black cell phone no bigger than a pack of gum. When they powered it on, the screen lit up with a single message: "Stay calm, others are ready." Davis watched the feed from the command center. They had him, but her gut told her something was wrong. Minutes later, another call came in from the federal prison in Louisiana, the same one where a series of orders had once triggered murders in Houston. Guards reported a coordinated disturbance. Inmates were setting fires in 3 different housing units. At the same moment, similar uprisings began in prisons in Nevada and Texas. "Ghost gave the signal," Davis muttered. He knew this was coming. The chaos spread fast. Inside each prison, gang members were smashing light fixtures, setting mattresses on fire, and using the noise to cover the destruction of contraband phones. By the time order was restored, dozens of communication devices were gone, flushed, burned, or dismantled. When investigators checked the prison network logs, they found a burst of encrypted traffic that had gone out just minutes before the raids began. Someone had warned the gang in advance. The leak had come from inside law enforcement. A week later, Davis sat in her office surrounded by case files. Operation Cell Block Empire had made 126 arrests across 6 states. Millions in cash, drugs, and weapons were seized. On paper, it looked like a victory, but deep down, she knew the operation hadn't killed the network, only wounded it. During a post-raid briefing, an analyst handed her a report. "Ma'am," he pointed to a screen, "you'll want to see this. We tracked a signal from a phone found in Texas. The number traces back to a new contact." The name on the screen froze her blood. It wasn't Ghost Alvarez. It was a corrections lieutenant, someone working inside a high-security federal facility in Arizona. The message exchange was simple. "Ghost, the streets will listen to you now." "Lieutenant." "Understood." Ghost hadn't lost control. He'd passed it on. Months later, in a sealed courtroom in Sacramento, Ghost Alvarez sat silently as a judge read his sentence: life without parole for racketeering, conspiracy, and ordering murders from inside prison walls. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, but Ghost didn't look up. His face was calm, almost peaceful. When court adjourned, guards led him away. As they reached the transport van, one officer noticed something small fall from his sleeve, a folded piece of paper. The officer picked it up, unfolded it, and froze.
Inside was a short message written in neat handwriting. "Control never dies, it just moves." 2 months later, a new inmate arrived at Pelican Bay. He was tall, quiet, and heavily tattooed. Within weeks, he had his own following. Guards noticed him whispering to others during yard time, exchanging coded notes in the laundry room. On a routine inspection, a correctional officer found a fresh message scratched under a bunk frame. "AB, orders coming soon." Agent Davis saw the photo of the inscription on her desk later that week. She stared at it for a long time before turning off the light. The cycle had started again. Inside America's prisons, the walls were thick, the guards were armed, and the cameras never slept, but the gangs were still in control. Behind bars or not, their empire lived on, adapting and waiting for the next signal. And somewhere, deep inside a concrete cell, a faint vibration buzzed from another hidden phone. Another message was about to be sent.